Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 defining moments of 1970s America.
Because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
For this list, we've chosen moments that we felt best represent this essential decade in American history. Number 10, disco peaks with the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack.
Well, you can tell by the way I use my walk, I'm a woman's man, no time to talk.
Though a slew of genres dominated the charts, none are more associated with the 70s than disco. The dance film Saturday Night Fever spawned an album that featured music from the Bee Gees, Kool and the Gang, and more, and it quickly became America's top-selling soundtrack. That meant hits like Stayin' Alive, which emphasized pop music built on strong bass lines and high vocals, were unavoidable dance floor anthems for a brief but kinetic time. Number 9, civil rights spills into sports. With racial barriers broken by athletes like Jackie Robinson, the 70s represented the first full decade in which African Americans regularly reached sports superstardom. Baseball slugger Hank Aaron did what many had considered impossible.
Here's a drive into left center field.
When he broke Babe Ruth's home run record.
Out of here. It's gone. It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time.
Arthur Ashe dominated tennis rankings. Walter Payton scorched the gridiron, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's skyhook shot was unstoppable.
Wade bumping against Kareem, forcing him out. Oh, it doesn't make any difference.
The sports world would never be the same.
Skyhook up and good. Lakers win.
Number 8. Star Wars takes us to a galaxy far, far away. While young, talented filmmakers brought audiences everything from Jaws
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
to The Godfather,
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
it was undoubtedly Star Wars that had the greatest impact on Americans.
Where are those transmissions you intercepted? What have you done with those plans?
Not only did George Lucas's sci-fi masterpiece become one of the highest-grossing films of all time, it also changed cinema forever.
I got him. Great kid. Don't get cocky.
Its epic story, groundbreaking special effects, sweeping score, and multi-part presentation helped lay the foundation for today's big-budget blockbusters and media franchises.
There's nothing for me here now. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
Number 7, Earth Day and the environmental movement.
A unique day in American history is ending, a day set aside for a nationwide outpouring of mankind seeking its own survival. Earth Day.
The social campaigns of the 60s continued the next decade with the rise of the environmental movement.
This planet is threatened with destruction, and we who live in it with death. The heavens reek, the waters below are foul, children die in infancy.
On April 22, 1970, the first Earth Day was held in order to combat Earth's rapid depletion in the face of nuclear proliferation and resource shortages. It became a seminal event as millions gathered in places like Central Park to hear speakers raise awareness of the neglected issues afflicting Mother Nature. It also provided inspiration for the Environmental Protection Agency and the Clean Air Act. Number 6. Pentagon Papers and the Fall of Saigon. At the decade's start, the U.S. was still haunted by the specter of Vietnam. Though President Nixon claimed to be reducing American involvement, he secretly approved further military action. This was revealed to the public when the New York Times published the Pentagon Papers in 1971, exposing direct reports of Nixon's hidden agenda. Political pressure led America to withdraw, and Saigon fell to North Vietnam in 1975. But the damage had just begun. Number 5. The Computer Revolution, founding of Apple and Microsoft. In the mid-70s, 2 companies were created out west that forever altered the country. In April of 1975, Paul Allen and Bill Gates founded Microsoft, initially developing computer programs. Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne founded Apple a year later, offering their first machine, the Apple I.
I hand-wired the entire bottom, soldered it all together personally because there was no way to afford a technician, and that was an Apple I, the first Apple I computer ever.
Microsoft and Apple served as figureheads in the PC explosion and became responsible for much of America's most innovative and popular technology. Number 4. Roe v. Wade.
In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortions.
Despite women's efforts, abortions were either completely illegal or greatly restricted in the early 70s. With the Roe v. Wade case, the Supreme Court was asked to deliver a verdict on the matter.
The majority in cases from Texas and Georgia said that the decision to end a pregnancy during the first 3 months belongs to the woman and her doctor, not the government. Thus, the anti-abortion laws of 46 states were rendered unconstitutional.
They made major waves by declaring that abortions were permitted as part of the right to privacy, so long as the fetus wasn't developed enough to live outside the womb, instating a massive, legally binding coup for women's rights. Number 3. The energy crisis. America faced its greatest economic challenge of the time with the energy crisis.
We are heading toward the most acute shortages of energy since World War II.
In 1973, the country was maximizing oil usage while production lowered. Dependent on Arab oil, trouble arose when U.S. support of Israel led rival nations to impose an embargo. Prices shot up, contributing to the inflation that was already wrecking the economy. America negotiated an eventual solution, but faced a similar brief crisis in 1979 during the Iranian Revolution. As a result of the crises, the U.S. became more involved in Middle Eastern affairs, leading to the Camp David Accords and a treaty between Egypt and Israel.
It also provides for the realization of the hopes and dreams of the people who live in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, and will assure Israel peace in the generations ahead.
Number 2. Opening the door to China. With Cold War tensions down, President Nixon attempted to establish relations with another nation, China.
I have undertaken initiatives in several areas to open the door for more normal relations between our two countries.
After a series of diplomatic maneuvers, Nixon agreed to visit China in 1972. The improvements were widespread and rapid, with China quickly becoming an important trade partner. The meeting convinced the Soviets to welcome further U.S. interaction, producing a series of weapons treaties. Nixon had successfully helped defrost long-standing communist fears.
The meeting between the leaders of China and the United States is to seek the normalization of relations between the two countries, and also to exchange views on questions of concern to the two sides.
Before we unveil our final pick, here are some honorable mentions.
But suppose it's over 3 hours. Relax. Panasonic VHS tapes up to 4 hours of sports, movie specials on one cassette.
It's fun to stay at the YMCA. It's fun to stay at the YMCA.
Number 1. The Watergate scandal and Nixon's resignation.
Mr. Nixon, did you know about the burglary of our Democratic National Headquarters at the Watergate?
On June 17, 1972, 5 men were arrested for breaking into the Democratic National Committee headquarters, setting off one of the country's most embarrassing scandals.
The Democratic National Committee is trying to solve a spy mystery. It began before dawn Saturday when 5 intruders were captured by police inside the offices of the committee in Washington.
Investigators discovered that the men held close connections to President Nixon, who had ordered his staff to participate in illegal surveillance and break-ins to monitor his enemies. When Nixon's involvement became clear, he resigned.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
Faith in the government was shattered, affecting the general public for years to come. Do you agree with our list? Which events do you think defined 1970s America and beyond?
When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Only a master of evil, God.
For more informative top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.